Welcome to Roll for Crit. This is our preview for the brand new Kickstarter for Stronghold Undead 2nd Edition. Now, this is based on the original Stronghold Undead, which was an expansion for the game Stronghold. This one is a completely standalone experience, and they have updated some of the rules, components, as well as the layout of the board and some of the turn sequences, among other things. The premise of the game, it's a two-player game head-to-head, where one player is the invader trying to raise their army of the undead and breach the castle's walls, while the other player is the defender trying to stop them before time runs out.
Now, this game goes through multiple phases, but we're going to go over the defender first, because really, the defender has the same abilities, just usually responding to whatever the invader does during each phase. So, most of the time, you'll be spending hourglasses. Some you'll earn at the beginning of the phase, some from other events, and you'll use those for all of these lovely things here. You can spend an hourglass to move troops, whether it's from one station to the next, swap to the courtyard or the barracks. The barracks in particular is how you get troops. If you notice, we have a certain number of pieces on the board. That's it. You can't recruit really more from the side. This is going to be a war of attrition that you're going to try to survive until the sun rises, which apparently kill all the undead in this world. So you could take a troop from here to upgrade a marksman to a soldier to a veteran, or any three of these to a priest, who the priest adds strength but can't really help defend too much. It's sort of, they're more offensive, but they also help repel some of those pesky vampires and evil spirits. So outside of that, you can also build a bunch of things. You can build cannons or crossbows, each designed specifically to take out either general enemies or vampires specifically. Crosses help with building up against panic, which we'll get to a little bit later because that's more on the invader's sort of cup of tea. You've also got traps you can build. You can sort of sabotage their own ranged weapons for a turn. You've got bridges which can help with movement, as well as consecrating grounds or saints which sort of stall the invader on certain of the rampart spaces. You also can simply just exercise, repel, or sortie, which pretty much involve either pushing away or killing the enemy units outright. You've also got these stakes, which pretty much kill if they go full vampire, kill a lot of them. Rebuild your walls if there's a way for the walls to be destroyed. And then hospital beds. These are actually really important because anytime you have a successful fight, units will go to the hospital, but you can only save another units equal to the hospital beds you have. So you really want to build this up early so you don't have too many losses. As you can see, there are a lot of choices, and you won't have a lot of hourglasses. You can be very limited, but you don't have to do the action right away. So for example, let's say you had 3 left. You could put 2 on a bridge and start on a cannon and hope that maybe he will give you some more through the actions he wants to do. Either way, it's all about deciding how you're going to spend those hourglasses the most efficiently to defend really what he's throwing at you.
Now, on the other hand, the invader has no hourglasses, has no on-board actions the way the defender does. They're mainly going to be working from their spell book. So you're going to have a selection of spells that will be somewhat decided at the start of the game, and they come in 3 different colors: green, blue, and red. Green are meant to be better for early game, blue for mid game, red for late game, but you will have this spell stack over here, and as an action during the round, you will be able to take from there and mix and match different colors, decide what you want to put out and when. So if you really want to, you could start with these red spells right away if you're experienced with the game and you think that would benefit you in the long term. What the invader does need to worry about is mana. That's the resource that they're going to be utilizing. They'll be generating some at the start of most rounds. We'll get to what happens in later rounds. And there are other ways for them to achieve it, and they'll be using that to activate their spells. They need to do that. They'll go one at a time and decide in the order they're laid out which ones they're going to activate or not activate. Now, if they use a spell, that means that some hourglasses are going to be given to the defender, and that's a pretty common thing with all of the invader's actions. Frequently, if the invader does something, the defender gets something in return. So there's a lot of back and forth that way. The spells can do a variety of things. They may help you spawn more units to add. They may let you move them in advance. They may let you add powerful tiles to the board, such as these bone throwers, which have their own personal decks, and when you're ready to attack, you will will draw a card. If it's a miss, nothing happens. If it's a hit, then they get to throw some bones into the building, and they block up some of these hourglass spaces, which makes it harder because the defender now has to spend an extra one to get rid of the bone before they can use that action. They also have things that can make it so that this entire side, for instance, if this token is put out, that's heavy rain, now they can no longer use ranged combat on this side of the wall. All kinds of things. They can make your strength better. You're sending out bats. A lot of wacky spells that you can mix in. And like I said, in every game, you might end up with different ones. Some tiles need to be activated in order for you to use them on your turn. You'll have to spend mana for that. But if they have these green markers on them, they may look different in the final product. Then you can activate all the ones of a certain type. For instance, this marsh generates mana, and you can put out multiple ones of those. This graveyard over here raises the panic level of the defender. That's something that will hurt them later on. A lot of different ways you have to mess with your opponent. This Altar of Death card is another nice way to generate mana. Anytime skeletons are killed, they go here instead of being removed to the supply, and the invader can choose to get rid of these, and for every 2 they do, they will generate 1 mana. So skeletons are kind of nice. That's one of the bonuses of having an undead army. They can come back sometimes and help you out in the future. Once you've played all your spells, you've activated some tiles, you're also going to get to a maneuver phase. So the invader now gets to decide how they're going to move their units they've placed forward to try to breach the walls. First, you're going to be drawing 14 brand new units from this bag randomly, and you put them in your camp. That's probably not exactly 14, but I did the best that I could. And you will decide to take a minor or major maneuver. Essentially, minor maneuvers let you move 6 from each space to the next one. Major ones let you move 8, but it gives the defender more hourglasses to work with, so you have to decide how you want to manage that. So you're going to move them first, if there aren't any ramparts, up to one of the gates that they're connected to, one of the wall sections, I should say. Then from this foregrounds area to a new rampart, and finally from the camps to the foregrounds. Each one of these have their own limits of how many units they can hold as well, so you need to be mindful of that. Now there are skeletons, as we said, and there are also phantoms, which are the white ones. They are special because they can hover on the walls. They don't add to that count right there, which is nice. And vampires, which are powerful, and they power up the phantoms, make them stronger for their total strength.
Once the invader has done all of that, you finally get to the assault phase. This is where combat actually happens. So first, all the range things on both sides are going to go. There's usually more range on the defender side, but as you said earlier, there's the bone throwers and also the Skeleballistas, I believe it was.
Oh yeah, they've got a lot of things.
The defenders' range work very similar. They have their own little decks here, depending on what kind of range unit they are. You draw from that, and it tells you whether you hit or miss or what kind of enemies you can kill. The archers, the marksmen, they can kill 1 skeleton for every 2 in the direction they're connected to. So that's also trying to arrange them so they actually can kill something. Depending on the other tiles placed out, like these little skeleton cauldrons, they also kill a free skeleton. There's a couple other weird things that may help you there. Priests will push away spirits back if they're in the same area, so you have to watch out for that. But of course, the undead have their own tricks too. For example, this tile here will actually just strengthen the units there as well. So once that's all said and done, everyone's manipulating and doing the range check, you're finally going to compare strength. If whoever has the most strength can kill that many units of that strength. So let's say the invaders had 5 strength on this side of the wall. Let's ignore what's actually there. While the defenders only had 2. So they can kill 3 strength worth of enemies. Now, that would be only this, but there's still enemies on defenders on that side. Now, if they were able to kill everything and still have some strength left over, they have broken through and they have won.
Yeah, and then the game immediately ends and invaders just win, and that's it. If they don't manage to do that before all the rounds run out, then the defender wins. So that's really the defender's goal, is just to survive that long. But then there are these little things that are going to make it harder for both sides. Like we said, that panic level down there, at the end of the round, if it's more than 1, the defender has to draw a panic card for each of those levels, and they will have numerous negative effects. Meanwhile, the invader, as the later rounds come, they have to actually spend mana rather than earn mana. And if they don't have enough or don't want to, it's another way for the defender to get hourglasses. So it's really this epic long battle between the two players where you're kind of trying to really assault the other side or starve the other side out. There's a lot of potential strategies It's a super deep game with a lot of steps and a lot of phases and a lot of different things you need to think about and when things activate and how. And like I said, there's so much back and forth. And that's a big part of it. There's not really ever a time where it's like, well, I'm going to hang out now while the other player does their thing. It's mostly, I did something, your turn to do something now. It's a lot of back and forth.
It is a game that's all about knowing what the game can do. Because while he the invader has his spell book, so he can get almost any spell at a time. Some of them are removed at the beginning of the game. So as the defender, you're really just responding to what he does. If you notice that, for example, if you notice he has a heavy range spell, you're like, all right, I can't probably focus on range. Otherwise, he'll just drop this over here where all my cannons are and make them worthless. Mm-hmm. But if you don't see that coming up, then like, yeah, I'm going to build a whole bunch of cannons. If you see him doing a lot of vampires, then you want to probably get some stakes going or some crossbows. So it's really knowing what these cards can do to each other and trying to respond appropriately. Like the crosses help you really lower panic level. So if he's really doing that kind of strategy with you trying to make you draw a lot of panic cards, you should probably focus on getting those crosses out as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's absolutely a game that rewards knowing what you're doing and rewards experience. And it does, I think it does a really good job bringing out that's like this feeling of
Dread?
Yeah, dread, or this like I said, this epic battle. I think it's been compared to like Helm's Deep, like a very Lord of the Rings style, like sieging the wall. It's essentially kind of a tower, not really tower defense, but like a defend your castle type thing.
I mean, that's literally what's happening.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess it is. It is literally what it is. But with the other player, a human being, controlling the other side of it, which is cool.
Yeah, we should also mention that some of the components that were considered, I guess, base, you'd say, of the original Undead are now part of a mini expansion. There's these phantasmal dragons, which are terrifying.
Yeah.
But the defenders also get their own little sort of spell book, so to speak, and spells that can be quite useful.
Right, so now you can choose to add those in when you're ready for sort of a more advanced variant of it. Like we said, there are some other changes here and there. This one's all standalone, but for the most part, the core of the game, I think, is pretty much the same idea. If you're looking for a really deep two-player game, then this is definitely one that I think you should check out, or if you've never played the original, might be a chance to jump into it.
I mean, check out the Kickstarter now. They actually have a whole section of like, why you'd like this game, or why wouldn't you like this game? So there's a whole another reason to make sure you know this game is for you.
Yeah, and obviously, I should go without saying, but a lot of these components are not final. The colors might be different and stuff, but the general look of the board and the tiles and stuff is pretty much set that way. So again, this is Stronghold Undead, and we'd be curious to hear from you if you've played this before in the comments, if you played the original version, if you're looking forward to this, you like the changes, or if you have any other thoughts about this or other Stronghold things in general.
I'd love to hear, because I know that they said they took out some spells. Like if people are saying like, oh, I really hope that spell was taken out. That was really overpowered or worthless or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. What's your spell style? And do you like to play as invader or defender too? What's your play style in that sense? Talk to us down there, and we'll have a link to the Kickstarter, of course, in the description down below. Thanks for watching. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
This was Roll for Crit.
Never miss out by liking and subscribing, and you can also check out more on our Patreon.
We do weekly podcasts on Patreon. Don't you want to sign up and hear more of our voices?